Good morning, I'm Jay from CWI Amsterdam. On behalf of my co-authors, I'm going to talk about the study on developing and validating a questionnaire for measuring social virtual reality experiences. Recently, virtual reality has become alternative to audio communication like telephone or 2D video conferencing like Skype. But VR experience is generally described as being isolated from the real world or from the other human beings. So to reduce this kind of sense of isolation, social VR is a type of system that invites multiple users to enter the same virtual immersive environment and to interact with the virtual representations of each other, such as Facebook Spaces, which embodies users' movements onto an avatar, and users are invited to use nonverbal cues, such as hand gestures and even facial expressions alongside verbal communication. So in this way, it hopes to reduce the sense of isolation and resembles, even go beyond face-to-face interaction. While social VR systems are promising to resemble face-to-face interaction, it remains a challenge how to measure and understand such an experience. There are many existing questionnaires for measuring, for example, quality of interaction, social interaction, or immersive presence experiences in VR. But for a single experiment, we cannot use all of these questionnaires. It's not feasible. So the challenge for us is to combine all these kind of knowledges into one single questionnaire that we can use it to measure social VR experiences. So this challenge leads towards two goals of our study. The first one is to develop a social VR questionnaire. And the second one is to validate this questionnaire. So we validate this questionnaire by conducting comparative studies across three conditions. So social VR condition, Skype condition, and face-to-face. The first contribution of our work is the development of a social VR questionnaire. And the questionnaire combines both well-validated items from existing questionnaires and items developed by us through user-centric studies. So I'm going to explain more about the items later. And the second contribution is the validation of this questionnaire. We use photo sharing as a use case because it's an activity we do almost every day to maintain our important relationships. And photo sharing can happen at different times, so such as Instagram, so people accessing to a fixed online archive to share photos. And it can also happen at the same time between people co-located at the same place, such as face-to-face sharing, and even they are separated by distance, so like Skype sharing. So among all these types, we choose to focus on co-present sharing because it's dynamic and it's improvisational kind of interaction, and we would like to understand how we can measure or understand this kind of interaction in virtual reality. So some related work. So in the past 20 years, questionnaires, self-assessment questionnaires has been widely developed and validated to measure presence, immersions, this kind of experiences in VR. However, these questionnaires focus very much on single user experiences VR, and they focus very much on presence and immersion dimensions. And in our study, we aim to understand the nuances of social experiences in VR by combining knowledges from two fields. So one is we call technology-mediated social communication, and another field is the existing field of presence and immersion in VR. Here I give an overview of the methodology we use. So we adopt a user-centric approach to design the questionnaire, and we conducted a comparative study to validate the questionnaire. So in the following slides, I'm going to briefly explain the process. So to develop this questionnaire, we started with a series of user studies with photo sharing users, virtual reality experts, and UX researchers. So first we conducted context mapping, which is with research methods invited users to be experts of their own experience. So we provide workbooks and generative sessions to facilitate users to reflect and observe their use of experiences. So in our context mapping session, the users mapped 12 typical experiences of photo sharing. And based on the results of context mapping, the expert participatory session mapped 20 categories of relevant social interactions that can happen in both real world and in virtual reality. And next, we designed an online questionnaire for clustering the 12 experiences based on the 20 interactions. And we invited 20 UX researchers to participate. This is one example of the online questions. So the UX researchers were asked to select among the 20 interactions which can elicit the specific experiences in the question. And we conducted correspondence analysis of the clustering questionnaire, and which resulted in 3 categories or 3 components of photo sharing experiences, namely quality of interaction, presence, immersion, and social meaning. And we cross-checked these 3 components with the related work, so with existing literature, and which resulted in 33 items of questionnaire. In the next few slides, I'm going through briefly the questionnaire items and to show you where these items are from. The first question is to ask the users to self-report his or her own emotions and the intensity. And these questions belongs to quality of interaction, and we adopt an easy-to-use pictorial emotion reporting tool developed by Fastenberg. The rest of the questions are using 5-point Likert scale. The question items are either derived from a well-validated questionnaire or composed based on the typical experiences mapped in the context mapping session. So question 2 to 12 is about quality of interaction, and question 13 to 23 is about social meaning, and the rest is about presence and immersion. And next, we use this questionnaire in our comparative study. We invite people to do photo sharing in 3 conditions as an initial trial to validate this questionnaire. We recruited a total of 26 participant pairs, so they are either friends or colleagues. And so the experiment is within subject design, and 3 experiment conditions are counterbalanced. In the face-to-face condition, 2 participants were sitting together and showing each other photos on their smartphones. And in the Skype condition, participants were sitting in 2 different rooms, so they share the same, not a different picture on their smartphones via Skype. And in the Facebook Spaces condition, we uploaded the photos to the Facebook Spaces, and participants, they were sitting in different rooms, but they entered the same virtual space to share their photos. So the photo is represented in a way similar to smartphone display. After each condition, every participant filled in one version of our questionnaire. And after all 3 conditions, we conducted an audio-recorded semi-structured interview to get more idea about their experiences. We used exploratory factor analysis to better understand the important factors of our questionnaire. And to ensure the items are meaningful and not redundant, we only took the items with higher factor loadings. So we can see the criteria here. And this step helped us to reduce the items from 33 to 24. And we further tested each set of items for internal reliability. And our final item sets show very high reliability coefficients. Here we show, it's just kind of an example, what kind of results we can get from the questionnaire. And this analysis is based on the final 24 items. So for quality of interaction, face-to-face photo sharing, of course, is perceived to be much better than the two other conditions. And in terms of presence and immersion, the social VR system is perceived to be more immersive and resulted in high sense of presence than Skype conditions. And for social meeting, social VR systems is comparable to face-to-face conditions, which is both of them are higher than Skype conditions. For the interviews, so we have a quite extensive discussion about the interview results in the paper, but here I give you some highlights. So in general, participants felt separated in screen-based communication, such as Skype, and it's difficult for them actually to associate the avatar in Facebook Spaces with real human being. So they pay more attention to the voice of the virtual representation, the avatar, rather than the gestures or facial expressions of the avatar. But they do feel physically and emotionally closer using social VR system. To conclude, our questionnaire can provide researchers with a tool to measure reality-grounded activities in social VR. And the avatar-based social VR system has the potential for providing experiences comparable to face-to-face activities. And in the future, we would like to explore more social VR use cases. And we also want to continue collecting data to validate the questionnaire. And we might also want to adapt some objective metrics, such as physiological sensors, to automatically capture the social VR behavior. And the social VR questionnaire can be used in other use cases. So I give some examples here, and currently we are trying out the use cases for healthcare. So we want to try patient-doctor communication, especially when the patient has mobility problems. And we are also looking into the movie watching experiences in social VR at the moment. And I give you an example of how to use our questionnaire. So you can just simply replace the activities in the questionnaire item by the intended activities of yourselves. So our questionnaire is available on GitHub. This is the end of my talk. I'm happy to take questions.
Hi. Sorry. My name is Dylan. I'm from Stanford University. I am wondering if your questionnaire captures, or if you looked at like the nature of the relationship between the people and how that might influence the overall experience. You know, for instance, close friends versus colleagues that you see at work. It might be different.
Yes, we tried, because we asked in the background information about the participants. Some of them have friendship about 5 years. Some of them are like a couple. So, but we don't have enough sample on each subcategory. But we do see some trend, like when they are close friends or when they are couple, they do have some like when they judge the interactions or closeness, they might give higher scores on that aspect.
Hi, I'm Vero van den Abelen from KU Leuven. I was wondering, are you familiar with the social presence in gaming questionnaire?
Yes, I think some question items are adopted from the Janet. The author is called Janet.
No, it's not Janet's. It's Yvonne de Kort and Poels and IJsselstein.
No, I didn't look into that.
Okay, you may want to look into that because they also have theoretical constructs underlying social presence, which might be interesting for you.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask you to write down the name for me? Thank you.
I will. So. And I have a second follow-up question that it seems very interesting, but to validate your questionnaire, you may need to have a wider sample and also check for discriminant validity and not just convergence validity, which you show with your high Krumbach's alpha?
Yes, that's our plan for the future. So we want to collect more data using this questionnaire. So we are now working on doctor-patient scenario and also movie-watching scenario. And we're also going to use this questionnaire in some like news reporting scenario. So people gather in a newsroom to watch a news. Real news together. So we are planning for this experiment at the moment. Okay. So I hope this can help us to externally validate this questionnaire.
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. So, did you try looking into understanding the differences or similarities between, sharing experiences in a synchronous versus an asynchronous manner?
I didn't look into this aspect, but that's a discussion we had in the paper. So, what about sharing online and sharing face-to-face? But through our interviews with participants, so before the experiment, we do find so face-to-face photo sharing is more enjoyable because it involves more interaction than online sharing.
More questions? No? Okay, so let's thank our speaker.